Get off the bus, move! Straighten that line up now. Stay down. You hear me? Stay down. Please stop. I can't take it anymore. Get off me!
Pay attention to how the most feared man in the Korean underworld walked into prison like it was nothing. No rage, no reputation, just silence. The guards didn't know. The inmates didn't know. For 12 days, they beat him, took his food, made him kneel. He never fought back. Then a boy got hurt. He stood up, and every single person in that yard stopped breathing. Before we proceed, please hit that subscribe button, and also let us know where you're watching from. The bus doors opened at 6:04 a.m., and the Nevada heat hit like a wall. Hargrove Correctional Facility stretched across the desert like a wound that refused to heal. Gray concrete, barbed wire, and a silence so heavy it pressed down on your chest. The sun was already brutal, climbing toward 90 before most of the country had finished breakfast. Dust hung in the air like something alive. Dante Morrow watched from the yard. He always watched new arrivals. It was his ritual, the way a predator scans the edge of a watering hole. Every Tuesday and Thursday, a bus came in. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Morrow stood in the same spot, arms crossed, leaning against the fence post closest to the intake gate. He studied each man who stepped off, read their body language, filed away their fear for later use. 11 years inside Hargrove, and Morrow had built something no warden could touch. Not a gang, something quieter, more efficient, a system. He controlled food rations, who ate and who went hungry. He controlled cell block assignments, who slept safe and who didn't. He controlled yard access, visitor schedules, even which guards conveniently looked away when something needed to happen in a camera blind spot. Fear was his currency, and in 11 years he had never run out. 12 men came off the bus that morning. 11 of them stumbled, shuffled, or looked around with wide, terrified eyes, scanning the yard the way a rabbit scans an open field. The 12th stepped off last. The new inmate moved differently. No chains rattled louder than necessary. No one shoved him. He simply walked, hands cuffed in front, eyes forward, face completely blank, like a man stepping into an elevator, not a maximum security prison. His shoulders were relaxed, his breathing was even, his feet hit the ground with a quiet, controlled rhythm, each step landing exactly where it needed to, nothing wasted. His body told a story his mouth refused to speak. Morrow tilted his head. Something about the way the man carried himself made him pause, just for a second. Not nervousness, not defiance, stillness, the deep, practiced kind that felt like it had been carved into the man over decades. He turned to his right-hand man, a wiry inmate called Reese. "Who's the ghost?" No record came through yet, no gang tag, no known associates, no visitors listed, nothing at all, boss. Morrow smiled. It was the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Nothing meant everything to him. Nothing meant the man had no one coming to protect him, no allies inside, no reputation, no shield at all. He had no idea he was watching the most dangerous man who had ever walked through those gates.
That first night, Morrow sent 2 men, Reese and a stocky enforcer named Vic, 6'2", hands like shovels, and a reputation for enjoying his work a little too much. Their orders were simple. Take everything the new inmate had, the extra blanket intake had given him, the soap bar, the small tin of food, establish the rule before the man even saw sunrise. They found him sitting on the edge of his cot, eyes closed, breathing slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth, steady and rhythmic, like a man counting waves on a shore. The cell was dim. One fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering every few seconds. "Hey, new fish, open your eyes. Boss says everything in this cell belongs to him now. starting with that blanket. Nothing. The man didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even change the rhythm of his breathing. "You deaf?" I said, "Open your eyes." The man opened his eyes, slowly, and looked at Vic the way a surgeon looks at a scalpel. Calm, precise, already knowing exactly what it does and exactly how sharp it is. He said nothing, not a word, not a sound. Vic grabbed the blanket, ripped it off the cot with unnecessary force, the kind of aggression designed to provoke a reaction. The new inmate didn't react, not a twitch of his jaw, not a tightening of his hands. He just watched him take everything and sat back down on the bare cot, settling into the same position as before, back straight, hands resting on his knees, eyes closing again. Reese hesitated at the door. Something about the man made the hair on the back of his neck stand up, though he couldn't have said why. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something older than fear, something instinctual. Boss is gonna want to know your name, and you're gonna want to give it to him. No response. They left. Back in Morrow's cell, they reported, soft, completely soft, didn't even look at us wrong. Morrow leaned back and nodded slowly, savoring it. This was his favorite kind of prey, the quiet ones. They broke the slowest, and breaking them slowly was the most satisfying part.
Over the next 10 days, Morrow escalated. This is what bullies always do, and understanding this pattern is the first real lesson this story teaches. When aggression meets no resistance, the brain interprets silence as permission. Compliance becomes invitation. The bully doesn't just repeat the behavior, they amplify it, louder, harder, more public, every time. Day 3. Kai's food tray was taken before he reached the table. One of Morrow's men just walked up, picked it off his hands, and walked away. Kai stood there with empty hands, sat down at an empty table, ate nothing, said nothing. 40 inmates watched. None of them moved. Day 5. Morrow had him assigned to the boiler room, a concrete room in the basement where laundry was processed at temperatures that crept past 110 degrees. 6 hours of scrubbing uniforms with industrial soap, hunched over scalding water, steam burning the inside of his lungs. Kai did it without a word. His shirt soaked through within the first 20 minutes, his hands blistered by hour 3. He kept scrubbing. Day 7, the yard, noon, under full sun, in front of 42 inmates and 2 guards who had been told, politely, to look elsewhere. Morrow's men forced Kai to his knees on the concrete, told him to thank Dante for the privilege of breathing in his house. Kai knelt. He said the words, quietly, without emotion. His eyes stayed forward, fixed on a crack in the concrete directly in front of him, and his voice was flat, the way a man reads a grocery list. Every inmate in that yard felt something twist in their gut, a mix of pity, shame, and a deep, sick feeling, the kind that comes when you watch something wrong happen and do nothing about it. Because in Hargrove, stepping up meant becoming the next target, and survival always won. But here is what Morrow, blinded by the intoxication of his own power, completely failed to see. Kai was not submitting, he was studying. Every time Morrow sent soldiers, Kai cataloged their fighting stances, their tails, their weaknesses, the way the left-handed one dropped his guard on his right, the way Vic always telegraphed a punch with his shoulder. Every time he was forced into the yard, he mapped the security cameras, the blind spots, the guard rotation times. Every humiliation was intelligence. Every act of cruelty was Morrow teaching him, without knowing it, the exact architecture of his own power. Sun Tzu wrote it over 2,000 years ago, appear weak when you are strong. Kai Soren wasn't just following the principle, he was perfecting it. The irony was devastating and educational. Every single time Morrow humiliated him, he was handing Kai exactly what he needed: information, time, and the one thing no amount of power can manufacture: patience. Kai had spent 22 years in the shadows of the criminal world. 12 days in a prison yard meant nothing to a man who had waited years for the right moment to act. Morrow was fighting a war he didn't know had already begun. If you were in that yard watching this happen, would you have stepped up? Be honest with yourself.
Not everyone in Hargrove was blind. Thomas Whitley, inmates called him Preach, had been inside for 31 years. 63 years old, thin as piano wire, with deep-set eyes that had seen every type of man walk through those gates. He had outlived 3 prison bosses before Morrow. He survived not through strength or alliances, but through something rarer, the ability to read people the way a sailor reads the sky. On day 9, Preach saw it. He was in the shower block, the one place in Hargrove where surveillance was reduced, where men were at their most exposed. Kai was washing his arms, and for just a fraction of a second, his left sleeve rode up. An inch, maybe less, but it was enough. The tattoo on the inside of Kai's left wrist was small, ancient ink, faded but unmistakable if you knew what you were looking for. A specific design, a specific mark. Preach had seen it once before, 30 years ago, in a city in Southeast Asia, where men like the one wearing it were spoken about only in whispers, and only when people were certain no one was listening. Preach's hands started shaking. He turned off the water, dressed quickly, stood outside the shower block for a full minute, breathing, before he moved. That afternoon, he did something he hadn't done in 31 years of incarceration. He approached Dante Morrow voluntarily, walked right up to him in the yard, something no inmate did without being summoned. Reese started to step forward, but Morrow waved him off. Curious. Dante, I need you to listen to me, not as someone who answers to you, as someone who has survived in this system longer than you've been breathing. Stop what you're doing to that new man. Stop it today, right now. Preach. The man can't even hold eye contact. He cries when we take his food. What exactly am I supposed to be afraid of? Morrow. He didn't cry, but Morrow needed to believe that. That's exactly why you should be terrified. Preach. Morrow studied him for a moment, then laughed, turned away. This is the second lesson this story teaches. The most dangerous leaders in the world are not the ones who lack information. They are the ones who refuse to hear it. Preach was offering a warning backed by 3 decades of survival instinct, and Morrow treated it like a joke from an old man losing his mind. His name was Marcus Cole, 22 years old, in for a non-violent offense. Possession, first offense, a charge that in a different zip code might have earned him probation. But Hargrove didn't care about zip codes. It was a maximum security facility, and Marcus was thin, nervous, and terrified of everything. The kind of kid who flinched when doors slammed and couldn't sleep through the night without waking up in a cold sweat. Marcus's mother sent him money every 2 weeks, $20, folded inside a handwritten letter that always ended the same way. Stay strong, baby. I'm coming for you. She worked 2 jobs. The $20 was real sacrifice, groceries, bus fare, hours she didn't have. Marcus kept every letter in a stack under his mattress and read them when no one was watching. Morrow found out on a Tuesday. One of his information network reported that Marcus had been seen buying extra food from the commissary, more than his ration allowed. In Morrow's system, that meant one thing: someone was sending money in, and any money that flowed through Hargrove without Morrow's knowledge was a violation. They came for Marcus at noon, in the yard, under full sun, in front of 38 inmates. Reese grabbed him by the back of his shirt and dragged him to the center of the yard like he weighed nothing. Marcus stumbled, fell to his knees on the concrete, and looked up with wide, terrified eyes. Vic stood over him, didn't say a word at first, just looked down at the boy,
letting the silence do its work. Then the hitting started. It wasn't about the $20. It was never about the money. It was about the message. Morrow needed the entire yard to see what happened when you kept secrets, when you thought you could survive in his house without his permission. The beating was public, prolonged, and deliberately brutal, and it was designed to make every single person watching feel the same cold terror. That could be me next. Kai watched from the far wall, his back against the concrete. His face carried the same expression it had worn since day one. Blank, still, unreadable. But something behind his eyes shifted. A door that had been closed for 12 days began to open. Because Marcus had done one thing. On Kai's second night, when the cell was dark and the blanket had already been taken, that Kai had not forgotten. The boy had slid his own bread ration under the cell bars, quietly. No words, no eye contact, no expectation of anything in return. Just a piece of bread pushed through the gap at the bottom of the bars, and then silence. It was the smallest possible gesture of humanity, and in a place where humanity was the first thing stripped away, it meant everything. In that moment, watching Marcus dragged across the concrete, bloodied, humiliated, barely conscious, Kai understood something with absolute clarity. He had been silent for 12 days, patient, strategic, watching and waiting. But patience has a limit, and that limit is when the people who deserve protection start paying the price for your silence. That small act of kindness just signed Dante Morrow's death sentence.
They were still dragging Marcus across the yard, bloodied, barely conscious, his shirt torn and dark with sweat and something worse, when Kai stood up. The yard went silent, not because of a shout, not because of a threat, because of the way the air changed, like the temperature dropped 5 degrees in 1 second, like the ground itself shifted beneath everyone's feet. 41 people stopped breathing at the same time. Kai walked forward, 3 steps, slow, each one landing with a precision that came from 20 years of training. His body moving the way water moves, fluid, purposeful, unstoppable. His shoulders were relaxed. His hands were open at his sides. His face carried the same expression it had worn since the day he arrived, mild inconvenience, as though this moment had always been coming and he had simply been waiting for the right second. Morrow turned. He had never seen the new inmate initiate anything. Not once in 12 days. The man had been a ghost, present but invisible, enduring but never engaging. And now he was walking toward him, in his yard, in front of everyone. "What are you looking at, new fish? Walk away before I make you." Kai stopped, 3 feet from Morrow, looked at him, then looked at Marcus, hanging limp between Reese and Vic, head down, blood dripping from his lip onto the concrete, then looked back at Morrow and spoke. For the first time in 12 days, Kai Soren used his voice. "Put him down." 2 words, low, unhurried, no anger behind them, no trembling, no threat. The tone of a man correcting a child who had touched a hot stove. The tone of someone who already knew how this ended. The yard didn't breathe, didn't move, didn't blink. Reese's grip on Marcus loosened, just slightly. Instinct, something in his body telling him to step back before his brain had processed why. Morrow stared at Kai for a long, suspended moment. Then he laughed, turned to Reese with a look of genuine amusement. "Did this ghost just give me an order?" The laugh was the last mistake Dante Morrow would ever make inside Hargrove. That moment when someone finally says enough after being silent for so long. Have you ever felt that kind of fury build quietly inside you?
Morrow sent 4 men. They came fast, Reese first, dropping Marcus, closing the distance in 3 quick strides, fist already cocked. He'd done this dozens of times. He knew exactly how to end a confrontation before it began. Hit hard, hit first, make the other man feel small. Kai didn't block. He didn't step back. He redirected, used Reese's own momentum, turned his body like a door on a hinge, guiding the force of the punch past him and into the second man who was coming up behind. Reese crashed sideways. The second man went down with him. 2 bodies hit concrete in the same second. The third, Vic, came low, aiming for the legs, the way he'd been taught. A low strike could drop anyone, no matter their size. Kai shifted his weight, 1 foot sliding back with the precision of someone who had practiced this exact movement 10,000 times. 1 strike, open palm, solar plexus, precise. Vic folded like a piece of paper and hit the ground face first, gasping. The 4th man grabbed Kai's arm from behind, both hands locked around the wrist, pulling hard. This was the smart move. Hold him still. Let someone else finish it. Kai didn't fight the grip. He turned into it. A technique from Tai Chi, one of the oldest martial disciplines in the world, that transforms an opponent's force into their own destruction. You don't resist the pull. You move with it, redirect it, and when the angle is right, apply pressure to the joint that was never designed to bend that way. Kai rotated his body. The man's elbow bent backward. A sound like a green branch snapping filled the yard. The man released his grip and staggered back, cradling his arm, his face white with shock and pain. 4 men, 11 seconds, 0 unnecessary movement. Not a single wasted motion in the entire sequence. Every strike, every redirect, every shift of weight had been exactly what was needed and nothing more. The yard was a tomb. 40 people who had been breathing, blinking, existing, all frozen. Even the guards had stopped walking their rounds. Morrow's face had gone white, not pale, white, the color of a man whose entire reality had just been rewritten in less time than it takes to pour a glass of water. Kai turned back to him. Same calm, same stillness, the same expression he had worn on intake day, mild inconvenience. You should have left me alone. Not a threat, a statement of fact, delivered the way a teacher corrects a student's arithmetic, without malice, without drama, without any emotion at all. The king of Hargrove had just been dethroned, and he didn't even get to fight back.
Dante Morrow was transferred 3 days later, not by request. The warden, who had spent 11 years pretending Morrow's power didn't exist because dealing with it was too complicated, suddenly found it very convenient to move him to a maximum security facility in another state. The paperwork was processed overnight. No announcement, no explanation. Morrow was gone before breakfast. Irony has a way of arriving precisely when it is least expected. Morrow had spent 11 years making other men disappear from Hargrove quietly, and now it had happened to him. Kai Soren didn't take over the prison. He didn't need to. He didn't want the throne. He had never wanted it. What he wanted was simple: to be left alone, to exist in a place where the world he had come from couldn't find him. And after what 41 people witnessed in that yard, no one in Hargrove would ever touch another inmate the way Morrow had. Not because of a rule, not because of a guard, because of what they had all seen with their own eyes, and what they knew, without a doubt, was standing quietly against the wall if anyone ever tried again. Marcus recovered. It took 2 weeks for his ribs to stop aching, and another week before he could eat without wincing. On the first day he was well enough to walk the yard without pain, he found Kai sitting in his usual spot, against the far wall, back straight, eyes forward, watching the sun move across the concrete. Marcus sat down next to him, didn't say anything at first, just sat there, shoulder to shoulder, feeling the afternoon heat on his face. The yard was quiet, normal, safe for the first time in weeks. "Why did you do it? You didn't have to. We're not friends. We barely know each other. Nobody would have blamed you for looking away, Marcus. Kai looked at him, the same calm eyes, the same stillness that had been there from the very first moment. You gave me your bread on my second night when you had almost nothing yourself. You didn't do it for a reason. You didn't do it because we knew each other. You did it because it was the right thing to do. Kai. Marcus blinked. He hadn't thought anyone noticed. It had been dark. He hadn't even looked at Kai when he did it. The strongest thing a person can do isn't fight. It's choose who they protect and stay quiet until the moment it actually matters. Kai. They sat in silence after that, two men in a prison yard under a Nevada sun. One, a kid who had almost been broken by a system that was never designed to protect him, and the other, a ghost who had spent his entire adult life being the thing other people feared most in the world. And for the first time in 22 years, Kai Soren was exactly where he wanted to be. The yard around them was alive, inmates playing cards, arguing, laughing, normal sounds, human sounds, the sounds of a place that had been running on fear for 11 years, suddenly remembering what it felt like to simply exist without a king demanding tribute. Somewhere across the country, Dante Morrow was sitting in a new cell, in a new facility, with a new set of walls and a new yard. And for the first time in his life, he understood something that Kai had known all along. Real power was never about how loud you could be. It was about knowing exactly when to be silent and exactly when to speak. The strongest men do not need to raise their voices. The most dangerous opponents are the ones you never see coming, and the greatest victories are won long before the first punch is thrown. This story isn't really about a prison fight. It's about patience, strategy, and protecting the people who show you kindness when the world gives them every reason not to. Who in your life deserves that kind of protection? Tag them below.